Welcome to Tracce di Classe podcast. This is your space to explore the key issues shaping global politics and history. If you enjoy in-depth analysis and want to follow our work, remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and stay updated with our new content. In recent weeks, Donald Trump has released a series of statements that reveal just how shifting and calculated his approach to the war in Ukraine and to relations with Russia really is. For a long time, he oscillated between conciliatory tones and open words of admiration for Vladimir Putin. Suddenly, however, he has shifted to the language of disappointment, threats, and sanctions. Speaking to reporters, Trump said bluntly that his patience is running out. He insists this is not his war, but Joe Biden's war. He added that both Putin and Zelensky have disappointed him, and that, once he loses his calm, punitive measures against Moscow will follow. The Russian reaction to these statements has been markedly cold. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin's spokesman, limited himself to a few words, once again confirming Moscow's tradition of maintaining a detached posture and refusing to be dragged into the theatrical and emotional tones Trump usually employs. Yet behind this apparent impatience lies a broader strategy. Trump is not simply aiming to strike at Russia. His real goal is to use the conflict as leverage to weaken Europe and to draw it into a position of complete dependence on the United States. His accusations against Brussels, which he claims has imposed sanctions that are too soft, and his constant calls for tightening the measures reveal his true intent: to drain the European Union of resources and strip it of any autonomy. The latest step in this direction is his appeal for European countries to completely abandon Russian oil. There is even talk of a 19th package of sanctions, proof of a blind race toward escalation that seems to have acquired its own automatic momentum. European governments, in the midst of all this, remain passive. They mechanically repeat the same positions dictated by their American ally. They appear no more autonomous than Zelensky himself, reduced to executors of decisions taken elsewhere. The expectations we can have regarding their ability to act independently are very low. In this context, however, some critical voices are emerging, particularly from Poland, a country in a very exposed and crucial position in the conflict. Some Polish observers argue that Warsaw should resist Western pressure and refuse to be dragged into a war that is not in its national interest. Instead, they call for an active neutrality and for pushing toward a realistic peace treaty between Moscow and Kiev. Their idea is to avoid using Polish territory and infrastructure to fuel the war, and to impose instead a diplomatic turn capable of halting the bloodshed. This position is reinforced by incidents that seem deliberately staged, such as the recent case of drones falling in Poland that were later revealed to have no warheads. An accident that appears more like a performance orchestrated by Kiev and amplified by the hysteria of European politicians. The only real result is to reignite anti-Russian alarm and to justify new NATO initiatives. It is no coincidence that right after this episode, the so-called Eastern Guardian program was launched, bringing in new members like Italy, Spain, Britain, and Sweden. Trump, however, is not limiting himself to the threat of sanctions. He is openly blackmailing his European partners. His insistence on abandoning Russian oil responds to a clear interest, opening the way for American energy supplies from liquefied natural gas to nuclear fuel. The goal is to push Europe into becoming an exclusive client of Washington. In parallel, Trump is trying to extend this confrontational logic to relations with China, demanding tariffs on Chinese goods and pressuring countries that maintain ties with Moscow. Here, though, resistance is beginning to emerge. In Brussels, there is widespread fear that secondary sanctions against Beijing or New Delhi would devastate European consumers. Even the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has tried to mediate, suggesting that Trump target only certain Chinese or Indian companies instead of launching a total trade war. Yet the reality is that Trump is unlikely to accept compromise solutions. He is convinced that he can force Europe to choose, either align with the United States or maintain relations with Asia and Russia. At present, only Hungary and Slovakia still purchase Russian oil through pipelines, since maritime deliveries have already been banned. If these two countries were also forced to give up, Moscow would redirect its supplies toward Asia and the Middle East. Meanwhile, Hungary and Slovakia would have to resort to more expensive markets, inevitably suffering an economic burden. All of this demonstrates that the war in Ukraine is no longer a local conflict. It has become a vast geopolitical battlefield. And although Trump insists that this is Biden's war, he is the one now using it as a tool of pressure to bend Europe, to reaffirm American leadership on the continent in ever tighter ways, and to keep anti-Russian hysteria at a high pitch. Thank you for listening to Tracce di Classe podcast. If you found this analysis useful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. What do you think about Trump's strategy and its impact on Europe? Share your thoughts in the comments, click like, and let us know what topics you would like us to cover in the future.